Body of Evidence, a short story by A. Happy Umwagarwa. It was already 9 p.m. and my daughter Uwase was not yet back home. So many questions were dancing in my head. She usually called to inform me of her whereabouts whenever she would stay late with her friends. But that particular evening, her phone was off. I couldn't go to sleep. I laid myself down on the couch, waiting for her to come back home. "Do you mean you won't sleep before she comes home?" my husband Rusiviza asked. "You should know Uwase is now a young lady. Do you realize she's 23? "I know," I responded. "But since Gachacha proceedings started, I don't understand Uwase. She says she will do all she can to find her father's killers and make sure they are punished. She's been meeting people I don't know." "What? Do you know the people she's meeting? What if they feed her with lies? You know who killed Muvunyi, don't you? Damasen, the man who killed Muvunyi, already paid for his crime. He was shot dead by a soldier in August 1994. Please tell your daughter to stop that nonsense. Her father is gone forever." "Yes, I know," I responded. "But Uwase doesn't believe Damasen, who was just a houseboy to our neighbors, killed her father. She's convinced that other people were involved in the assassination of her father and wonders why we do not want to attend Gachacha meetings to ask for justice for her father." "I will never go to those Gachacha courts," my husband Rusiviza said. "They are simply making fresh the wounds of the survivors. We already know who killed Muvunyi, and justice was served when that bastard was also killed." My late husband, Muvunyi, was a driver in the Ministry of Water and Energy, where Rusiviza held a director position. Although they were at different ranks in their jobs, Muvunyi and Rusiviza were friends, and Rusiviza liked to pay us visits. Few days after the genocide against the Tutsi broke out in April 1994, some people came to our house and took away my late husband, Muvunyi. They killed him and threw his corpse in the mass grave not far from our house. 2 days after my late husband was killed, his friend Rusiviza came to our house and said he would take us to his place. When I told him Muvunyi had been killed, he was so sad and angry at himself. He blamed himself for not having been able to save his friend. When we arrived at Rusiviza's house, we were surprised to find about 15 other Tutsis who were hiding in his home. I concluded he was a noble man with a human heart. After the genocide against the Tutsi, Rusiviza continued to support my daughter and me. Since our house had been demolished by Hutu militiamen, he found another place for us, which belonged to a former government official. In 1999, when he divorced his wife, we developed more affection for each other and got married in 2000. My daughter Uwase, who was already a teenager when I remarried, did not approve my remarriage to Rusiviza. She stated that I shouldn't have married a Hutu after what they had done to our family. She cared less for the fact that we owed our lives to Rusiviza. The relationship between my new husband, Rusiviza, and my daughter Uwase remained challenging. At least as Uwase grew older, she started coming to terms with the fact that I had chosen Rusiviza for a husband, though she maintained her distance from him. When Gachacha proceedings started in 2004, Uwase became another person. She took on the mission to search for more information about the killers of her father, Muvunyi. She blamed me for not caring because I had refused to attend Gachacha meetings in Nyamirambo, where we stayed in 1994. My new husband, Rusiviza, did not want me to participate in those meetings. He stated that they would bring back my nightmares. On that evening, when Uwase was late to come back home, I knew she had attended Gachacha proceedings in Nyamirambo, and my heartbeat was so fast at the idea that my daughter could be in trouble. Has she said or done something silly in those meetings? Is she traumatized by the testimonies, and might she be lying on a hospital bed somewhere? I wondered. I only wanted my daughter back. I probably had focused on my own sorrow and searched for my own happiness, but ignored the pain of my daughter, who had a million questions about why her father was killed and who killed him. When I was wondering what to do, I heard Uwase pushing the door in. "Where have you been?" I asked her. She muffled. She looked troubled. "Are you okay?" I asked. "Please tell me what's going on." "Mama, do you really want to know what's going on?" she asked. "Yes, my dear, tell me. What's troubling you?" "Take." She handed me a piece of paper. My husband and I were summoned by the Nyamirambo Gachacha court. "What's this?" I asked her. "Uwase, what did you do? Don't tell me you went there to accuse him. When shall you get over that hatred? You know well he did not kill your father. But why do you persist? Is it only because he's a Hutu? You're sick. Yes, you're totally sick." Uwase walked out on me and headed to her bedroom. I did not want to give that piece of paper to my husband, Rusibiza. It would have worsened his relationship with my daughter. "Honey, I would like to beg you for something," I said to my husband after we got in bed. "What is it? Tell me," he said. "I feel so bad for Uwase," I said. "She needs our support. Don't you think it's normal that she's grieving her father? She will not rest until she's sure justice is served." What other justice does she want? The man who killed her father was also killed immediately after the genocide. What else does Uwase want? "I know," I said, "but Uwase needs to know if it is really Damascene who killed her father. She suspects other people were also involved. All she wants is simply our support. Please, let's accompany her in the process to find the truth about the death of her father." "Kaiganwa, I have told you I will never go to those Gachacha meetings." Usibiza responded to me. "It's so traumatizing." "If it's traumatizing to you, don't you think it's even more traumatizing to Uwase?" I asked. "What do you mean?" he asked. "Are you possibly insinuating that I don't care about those who were killed in the genocide against the Tutsi? Don't tell me you are like your daughter, who hates me simply because I am..." "No, I can't believe this." "No, honey, you know I owe you my life," I argued. "You saved many other Tutsis. Indian Army could also have killed you. You're also a survivor. But I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Uwase, our daughter. Please, let's accompany her to these Gachacha meetings. Let's be with her as she searches for the truth about the death of her father. I know it will be painful to her, to me, and to you, but necessary. Please, don't refuse." "Okay," he said. "Do you mean we will go there next Saturday?" I asked. "I have said okay. Now, let me sleep. I'm tired." The following Saturday, I told Uwase that we were going with her to the Gachacha meeting in Nyamirambo. "Has your husband accepted to respond to the summons?" Uwase asked. "Keep quiet," I said. "I did not tell Rusibiza he was summoned." "Why?" "I have my reasons," I responded. "Uwase, don't think I'm in agreement with what you're doing. You should get over that hatred. Rusibiza was a good friend to your father. He was also saddened by the death of Muvunyi, my late husband. How can you suspect him for having had a hand in the genocide against the Tutsi? Don't you remember he hid us and many other Tutsis in his house? Do you recall that even the government gave him a prize for his courage and nobleness?" "Okay, come to Gachacha courts," Uwase responded with an insincere smile. "You might be coming for surprises." Rusibiza came out and interrupted my conversation with Owase. I needed to close that chapter once and for all. I was sure my husband Rusibiza was innocent. I believed my daughter was simply moved by jealousy and hatred. She hated that I had married a Hutu who was a friend to my late husband just a few years after I was widowed by Hutu militiamen. At the Gachacha court in Nyamirambo, I met many of my former neighbors. Some greeted me, and others looked at me as if they were recording their gossip. The court received many other witnesses about other cases, and I wondered when they would discuss my late husband's case. After 2 hours, a car from the Kigali General Prison parked in front of us. It dropped 3 prisoners. I only recognized one of them. We used to call him Karoli. Before 1994, he owned a small shop in our neighborhood. The prisoners immediately stood in front, and one of the judges said, "We shall resume other cases next time. We now have to listen to these prisoners. They have some news about the death of Muvunyi, our former neighbor, who was married to Kaiganwa. Is Muvunyi's daughter here?" My daughter stood up and headed to the front. When I wondered what was happening, I heard another judge calling my husband. "Rusibiza, where are you going to? You're also needed here." Apparently, he was about to escape from the scene. "Please tell us what you know about the death of Muvunyi." One of the judges said to the prisoners, "Who killed him?" "We killed him," Karori responded. "Muvunyi was a good person. We did not want to kill him. We only used to threaten him to get money from him till the day when..." I did not know how Rusibiza stood up and slapped Karori before saying, "Till what? So you're the one who killed my friend Muvunyi?" "No, I can't take this. Please take this Interahamwe away." "Rusibiza, go back to your seat," the judge said. "You have no right to slap anybody. You might be arrested for assaulting Karori." My husband Rusibiza came to me and said, "You see what I was telling you? I can't stomach this. We have to go." "Go where?" my daughter Owase asked. "The judge has asked you to sit down and listen." "Karori, please go ahead with your testimony," the judge said to the prisoner. "Sorry for that interruption." This man, Rusibiza, found us at the roadblock smoking cigarettes. He paid us 100,000 Rwandan francs and asked us to bring Muvunyi from his home. He told us that he worked in the same ministry with Muvunyi and knew well that he was an ally to the patriotic forces. "Those are lies," a woman from the audience shouted. "Karori is changing his story because Rusibiza has slapped him. Now he wants to implicate him." "Keep silent," the judge said to the woman. "Let Karori finish his story." He turned to Karori and said, "Then, did you take Muvunyi from his home? Did you kill him? Was Rusibiza there when you killed Muvunyi?" "After we took Muvunyi out of his house and brought him to the roadblock, Rusibiza greeted him and said to him that he was worried that they would kill him. He asked him to enter his car. He also asked my friend Damascene and me to jump in the same car. He told Muvunyi that he wanted us to see his house so that we could come back and take his wife and his daughter there. Muvunyi thanked Rusibiza so much. He did not know that we had already been paid to kill him. Karori said to the judges that when they reached the bushes that were not far from our home, Rusibiza parked the car and said that he wanted to ease himself in those bushes. The 2 men knew what to do next. They removed my late husband Muvunyi from that car and killed him. When Rusibiza returned, he checked if Muvunyi was completely dead, thanked Karori and Damascene, and drove off. I could not believe what Karori was saying. I was confused. I recalled how Rusibiza had come for us 2 days after Muvunyi was killed. and how we found some many Tutsis in his house. There was no way Rusibiza could have killed my late husband, Muvunyi. They were good friends. It's a lie. The prisoner wants revenge, I said to myself. Thank you, the judge said to Karori. Please come and sign your testimony, then take a seat. Many people were already murmuring that Rusibiza was innocent. Let's listen to what Rusibiza has to say about these allegations. The judge said, when Rusibiza stepped forward to talk, around 7 women and 2 men stood up and walked to the front with him. The woman, who had shouted before, said to Rusibiza, keep quiet, don't talk, we are all here to defend you. She looked at the judges and said, my whole family was exterminated during the genocide against the Tutsi. I can never defend Interahamwe or their relatives. We and many more Tutsis who are not here owe our lives to Rusibiza. He hid us in his house and fed us, even though he did not know who we were. How can these murderers involve him in their dirty crimes? This court is of us, the community members, and we can all testify that Rusibiza is innocent. Thank you for reminding us that he is one of the people who was honored for what he did during the genocide against the Tutsi. The judge said to the lady, however, the procedure demands that you respond to the allegations. I was looking at my husband and wondering what he was about to say. Muvunyi was a good friend of mine, Rusibiza said. There is no way I would do anything to him. I don't know these men. It's my first time to meet this man, Karori. Another prisoner interrupted and said, please, let me say something. This man, Rusibiza, is telling lies. I saw him when he met us at the roadblock. I was one of the people who went to take Muvunyi out of his house. I did not go with them in that car, but I recall that Karori and Damasedi told us how they killed Muvunyi under the instructions of Rusibiza. Where is that Damasen? The judge asked. They killed him, one of the prisoners responded. Who killed him? The judge asked. We don't know. We were in Congo when he was killed. He had stayed behind. After listening to more testimonies from those who defended Rusibiza, the judge adjourned the proceedings and said that we would know the verdict within 2 months. Those 2 months were the most traumatizing and depressing of my life. Even though it was difficult for me to doubt my husband Rusibiza, I could not help it but think about how much I would have betrayed my late husband Muvunyi if I had indeed married his assassin. I replayed the whole movie that started the day Muvunyi presented to me his then new boss Rusibiza, few days after he had secured his job in the Ministry of Water and Energy. Rusibiza seemed to be a good person. He never treated Muvunyi as his driver, but a friend. They used to come together to our house and I prepared food for them. I had never heard of any other boss who shared food with his driver. What if Rusibiza was interested in me? What if the smiles he used to pay to me meant something else? What if he killed my husband to make me his wife? I was baffled. My daughter Uwase was more convinced than ever that Rusibiza killed her father. On that day, after Gachacha proceedings, as soon as she arrived home, she took her suitcase out and said to me, Mama, stay with your husband, the assassin of my father. I can't continue living under the same roof with him. Goodbye. No, Uwase, please, don't leave me. Rusibiza is innocent. Those people who are accusing him have no other plan but to destroy our family once again. Our family? Uwase asked. Did you say our family? We ceased to be a family the day you chose to marry this Hutu. I'm not leaving you alone. I'm leaving you with your husband. She walked away and took a taxi to only God knows where. Rusibiza stopped talking to me or touching me. It was as if he was angry with me. I had lost both my daughter and my husband. Every night he received and made calls to different people in higher positions in the government. I could hear him explaining to them that some people wanted to send him to jail. He pleaded innocent and asked those people on the phone to help him. Are they going to help us? I asked one day. They will prove my innocence, but I'm not sure they will restore my image that has been tarnished by that thing you call your daughter. She's the mastermind behind everything that is happening to me. I kept silent. My husband had just called my daughter a thing. After 2 months, we went back to the Gacaca meeting for the verdict. Rusibiza looked confident that the Gacaca court was going to acquit him. I suspected the people he had called had given him their word. When we arrived there, one of the judges approached and asked Rusibiza to follow him. They went somewhere I did not know. After a few minutes, they came back, one after the other, as if they were not together. On that day, there were many people in that Gacaca meeting. There were even some policemen, and that scared me a little bit. I wondered if they had been called to immediately arrest my husband. It did not take long before the judges sat down and started reading their verdict. They read the allegations and the counter-allegations. To conclude, they said, the Gacaca Court of Nyamirambo finds Rusibiza innocent of the crime of the genocide against the Tutsi, and specifically the assassination of Muvunyi. Many people made shouts of joy. Some of them sang that the truth had won. Others repeated that Rusibiza was innocent indeed. I could see some of the women he hid in his house during the genocide standing up to celebrate. Finally, it's over, I said to myself. My husband is innocent. I did not care about the sounds in the background from those who were not happy with the court verdict. When I stood up to hug Rusibiza, Uwase pushed me away as she moved forward with something that looked like a radio set in her hands. She took the microphone and asked everybody to sit down and listen. She put a CD in the radio and played a recording. It was apparently a conversation between my husband Rusibiza and the prisoner Karori. In that recording, Rusibiza was begging Karori to change his testimony. Karori stated that he wouldn't change it because what he had said was true. He reminded my husband Rusibiza how he paid him money to kill my late husband Muvunyi. Rusibiza begged him to keep quiet because some people could probably eavesdrop their conversation. I heard in that recording Rusibiza saying to Karori, "Tell me everything you want me to do for you. I will do it. I have friends who have promised me that they would even get you out of jail if you want. Don't you want to go and take care of your family?" That's a lie. Nobody can get me out of this jail. I have killed many people and I'm sentenced to life in prison. You made me kill my neighbor Muvunyi, who was a nice person to all of us, simply because you wanted his wife, but you are there receiving prizes for being a hero. I will not allow that to happen. You should be punished like all of us. Finally, Rusibiza said, "Okay, maybe you've chosen to die like your friend Damascene. I will have you killed very soon. Yes, I instructed you to kill Muvunyi, and you did. Did I help you to kill him? Maybe you don't know I have many connections in this country. Everybody knows that I'm one of the heroes who hid many Tutsis during the genocide. Nobody shall believe that I could have been involved in the killings. I promise you, I want to go to jail. You will be the one to go to hell instead." After Rusibiza admitted he had a hand in the assassination of my late husband, Muvunyi, I lost it. I shouted. I screamed till when I fainted. The policemen arrested my husband, Rusibiza. Another man who had come with the police took me to the Kigali General Hospital, where I was given sleeping pills. When I woke up, my daughter Uwase was there. Her eyes were red. She had wept. Uwase, my daughter, I said, shall you find in your heart the strength to forgive me? I asked her. Mama, I have forgiven you. It's not your fault. You were blinded by that monster. How did you know about what he did? Uwase told me that she only had her suspicions, which were confirmed by Gacaca proceedings. She told me how she had trapped Rusibiza to get that recording. She had used one of Rusibiza's own friends, a policeman named Muhigira. That policeman advised Rusibiza to go to the prison and try to negotiate or intimidate Karoli. Rusibiza did not know that his conversation with Karoli was going to be recorded. One of the Gacaca judges admitted that Rusibiza had also bribed him. My daughter and I went through sessions of therapy for what had happened to us. I forgave myself. Uwase forgave me. We reconciled. But I'm not sure if we will ever be able to forgive Rusibiza. The end.